This one's a classic.
One of the only current achievable endgame goals in Southperry, the roguelite old-school MapleStory server, is killing Zakum, a boss who has a grand total of nearly 500 million HP, and with Southperry's 2-life rule and hard level cap of 100 before the run is forcibly ended, you somehow have to not only achieve sufficient damage output for the fight, but also avoid death within those 100 levels. The XP rate is significantly higher in this server, so reaching 100 isn't a 2-month-long challenge like vanilla old-school MapleStory, instead only taking around an hour or so if you're experienced. Southperry, in my opinion, is at its most fun when you just play around, test out various builds, see what works and what doesn't, and explore a light version of old-school MapleStory, which is something I never would have envisioned in my life. Sometimes, though, it can be fun to try hard, push your limits and see what you're capable of, and that's what I'll be doing today. Obviously, I think Southperry is one of the greatest MapleStory creations of all time, and I highly recommend it. With that being said, let's begin my journey to soloing Zakum. Before we go much further though, this video is sponsored by Eidolon. More on that at the end. I was doing a lot of Zakum attempts, so I would set up my characters before clocking into the roguelike mines for the day. Today I wanted to show off one of my favorite systems in Eidolon, Poppy the Kangaroo Mouse. I'll reset all my progress on this and claim my idle gains after the run today. Leave my characters to continue farming cards in the meantime as well because I'm still super into that.
Part 1, Victoria Island, RNG Hell.
This run was done with the Dexless Sin class. As I've done a number of runs at this point, I had accumulated more than enough cat cans to upgrade it fully to level 9. This means I start with Shadow Partner, Flash Jump, Meso Up, and 2 armor points instead of just 1, all of which would be vitally important for the success of this run. Mesos aren't exceptionally important, but they do have a fairly direct impact on your ability to upgrade gear past a certain point. Honestly, I'm not sure how easy this would be on any other class. The mobility granted by Flash Jump might be too good in the Zakum boss fight. I did test out the warrior class a little bit, and it comes with a built-in armor recovery skill, but I didn't put enough time into it to really reach any kind of conclusion. I'm more of a Dexless Sin expert at this point, for better or worse. One of the pillars of Southperry's gameplay loop are the randomized passive skills. Generally, you'll be going for a magician, physical ranged, or melee build, though there are subgenres within these groups as well, as I've learned. And any of these builds are possible with any class, as your stats are redistributed based on what weapon you're actively using. Actually, this is probably a good time to talk about this. You see, I've learned everything I know about this server organically, so to speak, by interacting with people in-game in a sort of knowledge-sharing manner, or through my experience and knowledge of old-school MapleStory, and a few comments teaching me how to scroll properly, which is something we'll get to soon. I've never watched any other videos of Southperry. I've never read any guides. I simply took what I knew about old school MapleStory, applied it, and iterated a few dozen times. That being said, I don't believe you need to be a god gamer to reach and solo Zakum. You just need a lot of luck, patience, and some experience. The luck, however, started out fairly early for me, as you may have expected. I found a triple-tipped Zamadar after the first boss fight at level 10. It had Boomerang Step on it, giving me a solid 4th job melee damage skill and setting me on the path to a melee build for this run. I had attempted maybe a dozen runs with the goal of clearing Zakum up until this point, so I had adopted the strategy of simply going for whatever I get first. If I get a few solid physical ranged passive skill rolls, for example, I'll focus on building for that. But getting a rare skill on a weapon early on helps a lot more in my experience. It speeds up the early game to the point that it's almost trivial, and by the time the weapon begins to fall off in performance, you will have accumulated so much power that finding a replacement weapon really isn't that hard. Just look at how quickly I'm killing these level 35 super monsters at level 11. It's ridiculous. I mean, I reached level 26 before entering the level 20 boss room, which means I gained 6 levels in under 15 seconds. This is easily the quickest leveling I've ever experienced throughout any of my runs, which is fitting, I suppose. I did lose an early life here, which was very upsetting. It was completely avoidable, so this was just bad play on my part. Luckily though, this wouldn't actually have an impact on the run. I'm just trying to make its hardcore categorization accurate. I don't need an extra life. Throw it away. I got muscle memory, assuming I would possibly find a brandish weapon or maybe an overswing weapon, something that wasn't a dagger, you know? When you roll passives that aren't helpful for your current situation, you have to think about what you can get that might play to your strengths in the future. A lot of the time though, I opt for avoidability. If there's nothing that increases my damage output, avoidability is usually my next best choice. This is mildly underrated in vanilla old school MapleStory since lives aren't sacred there, but avoidability is a very important stat in Southperry. So the fact that I was using a dagger which gave me luck, which is the best stat for increasing avoidability, was sort of the unsung hero of this run, as we'll see. I was so unbelievably strong at this level range, killing bosses in a few hits at most. Finding an early hat with Magic Crash on it saves me having to fish for the skill in the future. Magic Crash is an active debuff that lowers a monster's defense by 30%. Very important for damage output. As far as I'm concerned, this is basically the best in slot helmet skill. Scrolling my triple-tipped Zamadar was very straightforward. Get Boomerang Step to level 3, reset the stats, add as many slots as I can, and then Chaos Scroll it for bonus weapon attack. This is, critically, not how you optimally scroll weapons. I knew better than to try and invest heavily into such a low-level weapon, especially because there's an extremely overpowered dagger available later on, one that requires almost no thought to scroll exceptionally well, to the point that it clears just about any other weapon in the game in terms of damage output. It's honestly kind of insane. I moved to Forest of Golem at level 40, which is very dangerous. I normally wouldn't go here so early unless my damage output is insane, which it was, and I was rewarded for my bravery with another level of melee mastery. Between mastery skills and attack speed increases, a run can very easily be wasted simply because you never rolled the proper passives for your weapons. It's happened to me time and time again, and this run was blessed with full melee mastery and booster before even getting anywhere near Zakum. In the level 50 boss shop, I found a gold rover glove that had Heaven's Hammer on it. Historically, Heaven's Hammer was one of the best possible glove skills you could get, a huge AoE attack with a huge damage multiplier, but since the addition of Aaron skills, it's actually not the best option anymore. It's been dwarfed in power by the new combo Tempest, which is what I'm actually looking for. Again, I consider this best in slot for glove skills. I also began fishing for Final Cut. This is an insanely strong buff that increases damage by 45% at max level. It's only available on earrings, and I've only ever found it twice, but I figured I'd try my luck and see if maybe I could roll it. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Maybe it's for the best, as it takes a percentage of HP away with every use, and I had no conceivable way to restore HP. It was a huge damage increase, but also potentially dangerous. Which, you know, that's the trade-off.
Part 2, Osiria, where runs die.
I killed the mush mom that was summoned by the Big Bang boxes in Forest of Golem for the horn and headed off to Osiria. Once you leave Victoria Island, you're not allowed to return. There may be some glitch or something that allows you to do so, but it's unintended game design. You enter Osiria, you're here for the rest of the run. This is a common misconception with Southperry, so I wanted to make sure that was clear. All of the monsters in El Nath are super enemies. Because I specifically rolled 2 times drop and meso in Orbis and El Nath, knowing full well that this would be my endgame training spot, this is where the drops really started to come in. Almost immediately, I found a Korean fan with Phantom Blow on it. This would be my primary attacking skill for the rest of the run, actually, as I found it to be exceptionally powerful even though it's intended to be a single target attack. I maxed out melee mastery, giving me a total of 60%, and found a pair of Boss Hunter Greaves. Generally speaking, the more starting stats an item has, the more potential that item has for upgrades. I won't go in depth on how scrolling works because I kind of don't fully understand it myself, but suffice it to say that if you have a ton of stats on something, you can re-roll those stats with genetic recombination scrolls to achieve crazy results. And this is when I found my endgame weapon. A deceptively powerful weapon in a server that has attribute resonance scrolls. Because this weapon comes clean with only 2 stats that are both very high, you can simply throw attribute resonance scrolls on it and create the most powerful dagger in the game. It's possible to create other more powerful daggers, technically, through more advanced scrolling methods and a lot of luck, but the fan is consistent and easy. All things considered, I got pretty poor RNG with my scrolls, and I still created a 138 attack dagger with 10 remaining slots. These would all have to be used by attribute resonance scrolls since they will add the most stats per slot by far. The weapon was now locked in. I simply had to keep upgrading it to make it as strong as possible, but as early as level 59, I no longer had to entertain the idea of upgrading my weapon any further. And it was powerful. I threw a few genetic recombination scrolls on my Boss Hunter Greaves in hopes of a high weapon attack roll. It didn't happen, but I wasn't going to give up on these. Most of my damage output would now have to come from non-weapon equips, so this was the only way I was reaching the damage output necessary for Zakum. After a random internet outage and scary disconnect that had me think for over an hour that I had lost my run, I came back to find that I was actually totally fine. I rolled Melee Booster as a passive, which wasn't insanely necessary for a dagger, but was still helpful. In Southperry, your attack speed can go all the way down to 0. My fan starts at 3, so getting full Melee Booster and Speed Infusion would bring me as far down as I've ever seen personally. You know you're on a good run when the level 70 boss isn't even remotely threatening. I now have 328 weapon attack on my fan. Unfortunately, this would be as high as it ever gets because I had exceptionally poor luck with scrolling. This isn't too bad though. It's far higher than anything you could ever hope to achieve in vanilla old school MapleStory, as well as outperforming literally any other dagger in the game. Even if I somehow managed to get a timeless killick, it would be an absolute nightmare to try and scroll in pursuit of achieving anything close to 328 weapon attack. With level 3 Melee Booster, I was down to 1 attack speed. Arguably unnecessarily fast, but the more time you have to react to Zakum's attacks, the better. You can't afford to make mistakes, and I was willing to go all the way down to 0 if the opportunity arose. Between the attribute scrolls and the averaging scrolls, I ended up getting 34 luck, 34 weapon attack, and 34 evasion on my Dark Golden Circlet. This is good, but it's not amazing. It's fairly easy to get nearly double this if you have good RNG and access to a large number of scrolls. In this case though, I had neither. One of the only weaknesses I had in this run was my fairly low crit rate. Luckily, I rolled Sharp Eyes at level 78, giving me another 10% crit rate and 40% crit damage. This put me at 30% and 190% respectively, which I still wasn't super optimistic about. I definitely wanted closer to 50% crit rate at least for comfortable DPS. One of the toughest parts of optimizing your damage output in Southperry is the hard limit of level 100. I had to enter Zakum before reaching 100 or I would not be allowed to fight him. This means that as time goes on, you have to either return to lower level monsters to slowly farm a ton of resources, or start rationing them effectively. For example, I found a fan with Fatal Blow on it, but I wasn't impressed with the attack speed of the skill or the fact that it was level 1, meaning I'd have to upgrade it at least 2 times to reach max level. This, on top of the attribute resonance scrolls I would have to use, made it unfeasible to switch from my 328 attack Phantom Blow fan. I honestly can't tell you if Fatal Blow beats Phantom Blow. Between animation speed and subsequent DPS, I actually don't know. These boss hunter greaves have been an annoyance since I found them. I've used a dozen plus scrolls and in the end they're still worthless. So I restored them to clean. By the way, these restoration scrolls probably shouldn't have such a low success rate, and gave it another shot. This time, a single genetic recombination scroll added 47 weapon attack to them. I now had a 47 attack, 25 luck pair of boss hunter greaves with 15 slots remaining. I figured my best bet at this point was a chaos scroll, and these are the results. I definitely do not need to touch these boss hunter greaves for the rest of the playthrough. Snatch really isn't a great shoe skill, but I haven't actually found any shoe skills that make me stop and go, I need that skill, so I was fine with it. I did manage another success on the fan, but it added stats in the wrong direction, 99 points to HP. The extra weapon attack would have helped. I got another level of Sharp Eyes, easing my fears of low crit rate by bringing me up to 46% with the Codex lore passive that I also received. I was now just about in comfortable territory with regards to crits, and I was beginning to feel confident that this could be the run. Then I managed to roll Sharp Eyes again, bringing me up to 56% crit rate and 242% crit damage. This was now absolutely, without a doubt, a comfortable range for criticals. I was growing frustrated at my Gold Rover's lack of upgrades and luckily found a combo Tempest Glove on the ground to immediately replace it with. I added a large number of stats to it, averaged them out to 9, used Chaos Scrolls, and averaged those stats out to 40. Plus 40 Dex, Luck, and Weapon Attack. The only mistake I made was not giving it avoidability. It's something you probably want to be mindful of, but in this instance, I don't believe it made a difference. These gloves are now just about perfect. Solid enough scrolling and one of the best skills in the game at level 3. There was no longer any upgrade path remaining for them. Naturally, since this was the run, I rolled Speed Infusion at level 90. This brings my attack speed all the way down to 0, the fastest I've ever seen in Southperry, and the level 90 boss fell quicker than I've ever experienced. Another success on the fan, again in the wrong direction. Plenty of bonus HP from this thing, but I couldn't take the risk of ever getting hit, so it didn't matter. It was likely at this point, with level 37 Wrath of Akala, that I would basically be one-shot by anything in the game. This would result in a game over, so I never actually found out how much damage I was taking at this point. 10 out of 22 attribute resonance scrolls isn't even 50% success rate, by the way. I'm a little frustrated that I didn't have better luck with it. My earrings were the only remaining weak point in this build. I really wanted to roll Final Cut, but just couldn't. I even found a pair of half earrings that I ended up rolling Vampire on, which again is useless because I would either be at 100% or 0% HP, never anything in between. In hindsight, it would have been better for me to continue farming until I got a pair of earrings with some weapon attack on them, But I was just so frustrated and tired of dealing with earring skills that I kept my half earrings clean and the Zakum run began. Alright, let's check in on my Eidolon characters and see how many fish Poppy and friends caught. The bonuses from this are super nice, including extra fishing XP, which I should definitely be doing more of as a barbarian. I found this game on Steam a while ago, and I've been enjoying its progression quite a lot, actually. There's a good number of skills to level, all of which can be done passively. The mix of idle game and MMO elements make it feel less like an obligation and more like an actually enjoyable game. I've been playing both idle games and MMOs for years. They're two of my favorite genres, so a game that combined the best aspects of the two is perfect. Eidolon allows you to make forward progress on your account even when not actively playing, and it has a lot of content. Things I'm still exploring to this day. Eidolon doesn't demand as much of my time as other MMOs, and that's extremely valuable to me these days as a busy YouTuber. Sometimes I have to wake up before noon. Eidolon is available on both iOS and Steam, so I can hop in game on my phone to check up on things, and whenever I'm at my computer, I can launch the game through Steam, and my account is saved to the cloud, which is super convenient. You can play Eidolon for free on Steam using the links posted in the description and the pinned comment. Thanks again to Eidolon for sponsoring this video.
Part 3, Cursed Tree of Hell.
Zakum doesn't grant XP. This would be very broken if he did, as you'd quickly reach 100 and be unable to finish the run unless you intentionally started out at a very low level. So it's a good thing the developer thought of this. I don't want to have to min-max my entry level on top of everything else. Zakum's basic attack patterns mirror my experience with both him and Horntail in vanilla old-school MapleStory. That is to say, they're most dangerous at the beginning of the fight. Once I was able to take out a few arms, the pressure started to fall away because there were now fewer things attacking me and fewer opportunities to get hit. I had to be exceptionally mindful of my armor, which was the only way I was surviving this. Getting hit by just about anything would probably result in a death and yet another failed run. After the lower arms were defeated, the upper arms were a cakewalk. Just stand there and do damage like the regular game. All 8 arms down, and it was time for the 3 bodies. The first thing Zakum did was a full map AoE attack. This is kind of cheesy if you ask me, and the primary reason avoidability is so important. From what I understand, you can't dodge this, so you either have to tank it or roll a miss. His other attacks are easily dodged, though I'm not sure how comfortable this would be without access to unlimited flash jump, which is one of the reasons why I think Dexless Sin might be the best for this. A lot of the boss fight involved jumping around and avoiding attacks. I found that if I stand very close to Zakum, he actually does a small AoE that's much easier to avoid than his half-map AoE attack. I defeated the first body and thought to myself, if this is all that Zakum does, I'm fine. I can survive this, no problem. And it turns out that was all he could do. He summoned his regular Kuzcos, Punkos, and Boogies, but they weren't really a threat since they mostly avoided me, and I had Combo Tempest to clear them out every so often anyway. When the final body started, I was feeling the nerves. I noticed that the game would sometimes get laggy, especially at important AoE dodging moments, of course, and I got hit a couple times because of the lag. I had an intrusive thought that maybe the lag would kill this attempt and I'd have to start over again. To ease both of our minds though, let me tell you, it didn't. It never really even became all that much of a threat. There were very few times where I sat there with 0 armor hoping nothing would hit me, as Zakum's AoEs are timed in such a way that's generally favorable for survival. This boss fight could be made much harder than it currently is, but I'm grateful that it's designed this way instead. Body 3 was more of the same, and I finally killed Zakum in Southperry completely solo. No GM hat, no party, and over 20 hours of attempts. Zakum respawned immediately, which I thought was funny, but I was on too much cortisol to begin fighting him again.
Yes!
In a victory lap of sorts, I scrolled the Zakum helmet I received to give 94 weapon attack. A high number, but would have been better with luck on it. I was sitting at nearly 17,000 damage range at this point, and there was nothing left to do except finish the run. You might find this hard to believe, but the level 100 boss went down super easily. I don't even think he hit me once because I had so much avoidability. And that's that. I probably won't be taking Southperry very seriously again for a while. Maybe when we get more bosses or endgame content I'll think about it, but I'm going back to playing this server purely for the fun of it. No sweat, no stress, just silly builds like Panda Pinball or 100% crit rate.